Homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. Profound and subtle dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate all sentient beings, please generate unsurpassed bodhicitta. Today we are continuing with the essence of clear light, a general exposition of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. We have reached the fourth topic regarding the view, the purpose, which is divided into general and specific explanations. First, let's look at the general explanation. First, just as those who pursue any path will commonly engage it according to their own view, those who meditate on the Vajra vehicle can only engage in the context of realizing purity and evenness. If they lack this view that resembles their own eyes and legs, then meditation will only be an attempt toward the path. Without this view, any spiritual practice becomes merely superficial. As we discussed previously, we've already discussed the Dharmadhatu of primordial purity and primordial evenness. The nature of all phenomena is primordially pure, primordially even, and primordially empty. The moment you truly realize this state, it is what we call the view. No matter what dharma you practice, establishing the view first is crucial. We often say of a Buddhist practitioner, this person has a good view, or their view is very correct, even though their practice might not be great, but at least their view is right. Or sometimes the opposite. The view is fine, but the conduct is lacking. Whether it's your conduct, your meditation, or the view itself, a person's view is the most critical part of all. Even in the secular world, people talk about whether someone's perspective is right. So we are discussing the necessity of the view here. Generally speaking, for any spiritual path, whether it is the secret mantra or the Sutrayana, even for non-Buddhist traditions, they also establish a view first. Then they begin their practice based on that view. Regardless of the path or the specific dharma you practice, the practice must always follow the view. This is an absolute definitive law. When it comes to Vajrayana practices or the practice of the secret mantra, practices such as the generation stage and the completion stage must follow the view of primordial purity and primordial evenness. If you lack the view, which is like having eyes, you won't get anywhere. In daily life, you can't walk if you don't open your eyes. If you are blind, you simply cannot walk. So first and foremost, the view is like our eyes. If you do not possess such a view, then your later practice, which is like your legs, won't be able to move forward. You won't even know which direction to go. If you study the middle way, the view of emptiness is vital. Only then can you practice based on that view of emptiness. It's the same for Tantra, whether it's the generation or completion stage. Whether you chant mantras, practice meditative absorption, or perform various activities, the most crucial point of all is the view. Without a proper view, your practice will never be complete. In that case, the practice becomes merely superficial. Your path of the Vajrayana becomes nothing more than a hollow form. This is why I'm very concerned. Some Buddhists in the Han region today, including both lay people and monastics, don't seek the tantric view at all. They have almost no understanding of primordial purity and evenness. On the surface, they perform tantric activities, receive empowerments, and chant mantras. They claim to practice the generation stage and completion stage, or things like tsalung. Some people often carry around a large furba dagger. But in reality, no matter how long your furba is, if you have no foundation in the view, it is very likely that you will just treat it as a physical weapon. You might use this weapon to harm those you disagree with, such as perceived demons or your enemies. If that happens, the secret mantra becomes purely superficial. Just like a shadow of a person is not the real person, this superficial dharma is not the genuine path. It is only an imitation of the secret mantra. You must understand this. I think many of you here must have faith and interest in the secret mantra. But most people love to go for empowerments without knowing what they are. They don't even know the purpose of the empowerment. As I've mentioned before, if a secret mantra guru says an empowerment is wonderful, they are eager to attend. If a non-Buddhist teacher says their empowerment is even better, they would follow that as well. This is because they don't understand the essence. They're just after the appearance. So everything they do is just a hollow imitation of Tantra. On the other hand, upholding meditation with the perfectly correct view constitutes the fully qualified path of the Vajra vehicle. If you are truly guided by such a view, the view of primordial purity and primordial evenness, and you truly realize that this is the nature of all phenomena, not just words. Through logic and pith instructions, you understand this fully in your heart. Under the guidance of such a view, no matter what practice or conduct you engage in, all paths of the secret mantra become the authentic Vajra vehicle, not just a hollow imitation. This is of utmost importance since the key points of all paths depend upon this alone. It all comes down to the view. That is the fundamental point of any path. The view is indispensable. Therefore, the great masters of the past first established the view of the secret mantra. A great deal of effort must be put into this. In the past, whenever His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche taught the ascents of clear light, he explained the section on the view very thoroughly. I believe those who have heard the tantric teachings from His Holiness within Larungar must have a much clearer and deeper view of the secret mantra. Due to the Guru's emphasis, the pith instructions, and various other factors, many people have likely realized just how key and important it is. Without a guru like that, or the chance to learn together in this kind of environment, although many people might have faith in the tantric teaching, it is hard to say how much they actually understand the secret mantra. Among the disciples of a lineage, those who have personally studied and practiced under great Mahasiddhas and practiced with experts in the secret mantra are completely different in their level of understanding. So far, we've discussed the general necessity of having the correct view. Without the view, any practice you do becomes a mere image. Currently, in Tibetan Buddhism, among the many people who are studying it, especially in the Han region and abroad, they are very fond of Tibetan Buddhism. But despite all this interest, I wonder how many people actually get the view of the secret mantra. You might often see this yourselves. There are empowerments in certain temples or consecrations here and there, and people going into retreats or practicing in various places. But from the people I meet and the questions they ask, it seems most people are just practicing blindly. They think the Guru said I should probably practice this way, and I heard visualizing Vajrasattva is good, so I'll do that. Beyond that, they don't really have a full grasp of the pith instructions. So I am not saying that there is no real practice elsewhere. But if you don't understand the view, your practice becomes merely superficial. This isn't just my opinion, it's what Mifam Rinpoche taught. Please keep this in mind. Now let's move on to the specific explanation of the purpose. We've covered the purpose of the view generally. Next, we will continue discussing the 11 topics of Tantra. Including the view itself, there are 11 such topics. Essentially, every key aspect of the secret mantra is called a topic of Tantra. These are the most vital elements within the Tantras. All 11 topics of Tantra require the foundation of the view. The view is indispensable. As a result of the strength of this view, meditation will be unmistaken, conduct meaningful, the mandala in harmony with the genuine, attainment reached through empowerment, samaya difficult to transgress, practice not wasted, offerings perfectly pure, enlightened activity mastered, and mantra and mudra exalted. Let's look at each of these one by one. Whether it is meditation, practice, empowerment, the mandala, or the samaya vows, anyone studying secret mantra must first finish studying the general exposition of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. Otherwise, you won't even know the basic terms or the underlying logic. Many people don't even know what a mandala is or what samaya means. They don't know what an empowerment is or what samadhi is in secret mantra. But if you complete your studies of this Guhyagarbha Tantra, even if you don't become an expert, you'll at least get the gist of each level and understand what the secret mantra is really about. So I hope that you will all try your best to finish the study, whether you are here at Larungar or elsewhere. Now let's discuss these topics one by one. We'll start with the first of the 11 topics, meditation or samadhi. Keep in mind that for every single practice, pure view is indispensable. If phenomena did not abide as purity and evenness, it would follow that meditation upon the universe and its inhabitants as the support and supported wisdom deities would constitute meditation upon that which is false. In that scenario, meditation would be mistaken. When we practice meditation, we view the mind as wisdom. In Zen, this is the direct recognition that afflictions are bodhi. In the secret mantra, we call this samadhi or meditative absorption. For instance, in any visualization or meditation, we view the external environment as a pure land or a celestial palace. We view the sentient beings within it as deities. Whether it's Sukhavati, Guru Rinpoche, or any part of the environment and its inhabitants, they are all visualized as pure. This is a part of every practice. For example, you might visualize yourself as a specific deity and the entire world you live in as the pure land of Amitabha. Especially as you move up to the unsurpassed Tantra, you visualize yourself directly as the deity and the world around you as the pure land of Amitayus, or the pure land of Guru Rinpoche, or the Eastern Pure Land. But if all phenomena were not primordially even and pure, then visualizing yourself as the deity in your world as a pure land would be like trying to see something as pure when it really isn't. That would make the whole visualization a complete delusion. But that's not the case. The truth is exactly what we established earlier. This meditation is upon the way things are, and hence it is unmistaken. This is the key reason why our practice is not mistaken. This applies to many practices. It's not just in the secret mantra, but in the Sutrayana as well. Look at the Platform Sutra or any Zen teaching. When the teachings get a bit deeper, they say the whole world is a pure land. The world we are in right now is also a pure land. Even our every thought is primordially pure. Because everything is primordially pure and even, this way of meditating is perfectly logical. Ultimately, this pure state will actually manifest through your practice. If things weren't already pure, then visualizing them that way would be useless. Imagine a dirty bottle filled with filth. If you desperately try to imagine it's full of milk, no matter how hard you visualize, the contents won't actually change. It's simply impossible. So the first point is that our meditation is based on purity. Because all phenomena are primordially pure, it's established that our meditation is not mistaken. If they weren't pure, then none of this would work. That's the first topic of the Tantra. In regard to conduct, if all activities are engaged with the view of purity and evenness, such as freely enjoying the desirables without acceptance or rejection, the fearless conduct in union and liberation, and so forth, if things are pure and even, then acting in accordance with the view is logical. If that were not the context, then, as explained according to the common vehicle, conduct such as that would be deemed careless and need to be abandoned. Therefore, it is due to the key point of purity and evenness that all conduct on the level of mantra becomes significantly meaningful. We all know that some behaviors in the secret mantra are quite extraordinary. For instance, in the wondrous histories of great Vajrayana Mahasiddhas, they don't reject sensory pleasures like sights, sounds, or smells. They enjoy them directly. There is no dualistic choice of accepting good or rejecting bad. Especially in certain tantric conducts, there is no such accepting or rejecting. There are practices like union with a consort, or the subjugation of those who harm the Dharma and other suffering beings. These acts are possible because reality is pure in its nature. We see similar acts in Han Buddhism, like the monk Jigong eating meat or Nanquan killing the cat. There are many such stories. Although these stories exist in history, no one really dares to talk about them. They are considered quite inconceivable. But if the nature of reality wasn't primordially pure and even, then such behaviors would be completely out of line. It would be totally illogical for the Hinayana to forbid such acts, while the Mahayana or Vajrayana allows them. That just wouldn't make sense. So regarding certain behaviors in the secret mantra, not every practitioner is qualified to act in such a way. But do these behaviors actually exist in the secret mantra? If we look at the history of the great masters, they certainly did. Does this mean everyone can do the same? No, that is definitely not the case. However, for those who have truly realized the view of primordial purity and evenness, it is just like what we read in the biography of Guru Rinpoche. To further enhance their realization of non-distraction and non-fixation, they sometimes display all kinds of unconventional conduct. They do this precisely because everything is fundamentally pure. If things weren't pure, then the restrictions of the Hinayana would be the only truth. In that case, all these tantric behaviors would just be considered insane, but in reality, that's not the case. On the surface, these practitioners look like ordinary people who engage in common activities, whether it is union, subjugation, or conduct without accepting or rejecting, or even singing Vajra songs, performing Vajra dances, and many other things. For certain yogis, under specific circumstances, if necessary, these actions are indispensable. Even if you don't have that level of realization, during a tsok feast, even performing these acts symbolically still carries great merit and meaning. This is all possible because of primordial evenness and purity. Since reality is truly pure and even for such a practitioner, opposites like life and death or hatred and desire are all of one single taste and one single essence. Those with worldly views or who only study the Hinayana might think, this is good, but that is bad. They are stuck in these dualistic notions of accepting and rejecting. To further crush and transcend those dualistic thoughts, one may engage in these unconventional conducts under specific circumstances. However, if you only understand purity and evenness on a literal level, you cannot act this way. If your mind is still full of genuine desire, genuine hatred, and genuine afflictions, then the secret mantra never permits any action driven by such afflictions. As we learned in the latter part of ascertainment of the 3 types of vows, you should all know this. When discussing the integration of the 3 vows, Ngari Panchen also stated clearly, stopping the self-characterized afflictions is required across all vehicles. This is true for the secret mantra and the bodhisattva vehicle. just as it is for the pratimoksha. In the Vajrayana, only for those who can truly destroy these afflictions will there be these special cases in conduct. This is the second topic of the Tantra. Why is tantric conduct logical? It is logical because all phenomena are primordially pure. And as we said, the same applies to meditation in the secret mantra. Meditating on primordial purity is perfectly valid. The third topic is the tantric mandala. Regarding mandala, in order to indicate the intrinsic nature of the inseparable mandala of the ground and result, there are the illustrative mandala and the mandala of the path. To realize the resultant mandala by means of the path, if it were not the nature of the ground, even the path itself would not be perfectly correct, and consequently a pure result could not emerge. Since the mandala is established according to the ground, it is in harmony with the genuine nature. What does this mean? There are three types of mandalas: the mandala of the ground, the path, and the resultant. The mandala of the ground and the resultant are actually indivisible from the true nature of all phenomena. As for the mandala of the path, the essence of clear light explains it through the symbolic indication mandala and the indicated genuine mandala. The symbolic indication mandala include four: the colored sand, drawing, proportion lines, and group formation. The indicated genuine mandala being represented are our own body, speech, and mind, which represent the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Our body, speech, and mind are purified through the process of practicing the path. From this perspective, by relying on the symbolic indication mandala and the mandala of the path, we can manifest the actual resultant mandala through our practice. The resultant mandala is the state where all phenomena are primordially even and pure. This is possible. If the fundamental ground of all phenomena were not primordially pure and even, then this path and this way of practicing would be illogical. It would also be impossible to produce a pure fruit. During an empowerment, we always set up various mandalas. For example, we use symbolic mandalas like the Guhya Garbha mandala, which display the peaceful and wrathful deities. Or during an empowerment, we might draw mandalas to represent the celestial palace and the deities within. There are also mandalas of proportioned lines and the colored sand. But these are all just symbolic forms and signs. Through them we recognize the path, and through the path we manifest primordial purity of all phenomena. This is a state where the ground and fruit are indivisible. This method allows us to manifest or reach that ultimate goal. But if the essence were not already pure, we could never get there. Therefore, every mandala is perfectly logical because of primordial purity. That covers the mandala. As for empowerment, the three doors, including their inseparability, primordially abide as the four vajras. Similar to a candle illuminating a vase or a finger pointing out the moon, the strength of empowerment imparts understanding, experience, and realization. If this primordial nature were not the intrinsic nature, then there would be no genuine truth to be introduced through empowerment. What is the purpose of receiving an empowerment in the unsurpassed mantra? For the recipient, it is to realize that their own body, speech, and mind, including their inseparability, primordially abide as the body, speech, mind, and their inseparability of the Buddhas. These are known as the four Vajras. This is to say that our body, speech, and mind, along with the body, speech, and mind of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, have always been primordially one and the same. But because of temporary deluded appearances, we fail to recognize this true essence. Empowerment is the ceremony that brings about this recognition. It's like having a vase in a room that nobody can see, but with the light of a candle, it becomes visible. Or imagine the moon is in the sky, but no one notices it. Someone else points their finger and says, "Look, the moon is right there." Then you look and say, "Oh, I see it. The moon is right there in the sky." Actually, empowerment points to the state where your mind is indivisible from the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. It uses symbols to point this out to you. That is what empowerment means. During the process, beginners may gain an understanding of this symbolic, illustrative wisdom. Those with average capacity will truly experience it. They truly receive the enlightened wisdom, the three or four Vajras, which are one's own body, speech, and mind, indivisible from the Buddhas. Those with the highest capacity will gain realization right then and there. So empowerment works because all phenomena are primordially pure. It works because the body, speech, and mind of sentient beings are fundamentally indivisible from those of the Buddhas. That is why you can attain such states through empowerment. If the nature were not like this, no amount of empowerments could ever reveal the truth. Even if the teacher points with a crystal ball and asks you to look, what is the nature of this crystal? It wouldn't help. Nowadays, many people don't understand the real meaning of empowerment. They just scramble for the nectar, thinking, oh, it's so sweet and delicious. They act as if they are starving for a drink. They don't think about what these symbols represent, or the purpose of drinking the nectar, the meaning of seeing it, or what the visualization is supposed to achieve. They don't consider the underlying meaning at all. They just crowd together to get a small sip and say, wow, that's sweet, not bad. Maybe it could use a little more sugar, but it's okay. Some people are always like that. They only seek the external form and miss the true significance. If you haven't realized the view of primordial purity, you won't understand much of the secret mantra's logic at all. It might even seem like tantric conduct is no different from non-Buddhist traditions. In fact, Hinduism and Brahmanism have very similar rituals. The Tsak feasts, empowerments, austerities, and mandalas. They have many of the same ceremonies. But as we said before, what are they missing? They haven't realized that all phenomena are primordially empty and pure. They don't understand that even the discursive thoughts of sentient beings are fundamentally indivisible from the wisdom of the Buddhas. No other religion has such a profound, direct pointing to this truth. So when we say the secret mantra is profound, there is a good reason for it. The great masters of the past left us these precious teachings, but few truly know them. The significance of empowerment is the same. It is all rooted in primordial purity. So attainment through empowerment also depends on this. It depends on this view. If you don't understand that all phenomena are primordially pure, relying only on external rituals won't carry much significance. In the unsurpassed mantra, every instruction given during empowerment is actually a skillful means to recognize your own nature. That is how we should understand it. Next, we will discuss the tantric samayas. Once you receive empowerment and enter the secret mantra, you must keep many vows, such as the 14 root downfalls and the 5 root samayas. These samayas are also directly related to the view. In what way are they directly related? In respect to mantra's samaya, it is said that one should not harbor doubt about phenomena being naturally pure as the deity. One should not discriminate through conceptualizing the evenness that is beyond names and so forth. If purity and evenness were not the nature of phenomena, it would be untenable to consider that by holding to that view, with a sound mind, a root downfall could actually occur. The secret mantra teaches that all phenomena are primordially pure and are the essence of the deity. You should not harbor any doubt about this. If you do, you violate the 9th root downfall of the secret mantra, which forbids doubting the primordial purity of all phenomena. Furthermore, all phenomena are primordially beyond names and characteristics. If you cling to them as having specific characteristics, you also break a root samaya. Why is it said this way? Since all things are primordially pure, strictly and ultimately speaking, if you doubt that purity or clinging to characteristics, then it is just a conceptual thought that doesn't match reality. Therefore, on a strict level, this is a violation of the tantric vows. It was clearly pointed out to you during the empowerment that all phenomena are beyond characteristics and are the pure deity. It was made very clear to you. If you later doubt it or cling to characteristics, then you aren't listening. You're not being a good kid. That's why the secret mantra calls this a broken samaya. Otherwise, if things weren't actually pure, then the secret mantra would be completely unfair. If they weren't pure and you perceived them as such, but the secret mantra forced you to visualize them as pure, then it would be totally irrational to punish you for having doubts. You could even take them to court for that, but that's not how it works. Why does the secret mantra have these samayas? Some people might wonder, the secret mantra has these samayas, but why aren't they found in the Sutrayana or the Pratimoksha? This is because the Pratimoksha level has not yet reached such a realization. At the level of the Pratimoksha, one still accepts the conventional rules of what to adopt or reject. The requirements for a university graduate and a 5th grader are very different. There are many levels in between. They are not the same. So every stage of practice has its own specific requirements. But as you progress higher, these samayas become perfectly logical. Therefore, if things were not primordially even and pure, then clinging to them as ordinary would be reasonable. It wouldn't count as a root downfall in the secret mantra. Furthermore, it would contradict the path of being free from attachment. All the samayas, such as not abusing the aggregates, accepting the desirables and samaya substances, mudra, and others, are in keeping with the meaning of purity and evenness. This means that the Shravaka vehicle of the Sutrayana simply does not accept these ideas. In the Shravaka view, the body is generally seen as tainted and impermanent. It is considered impure and the nature of suffering. So in their context, engaging in austerities is seen as a virtuous practice. But in the secret mantra, the 5 aggregates are actually seen as the 5 Buddhas. Therefore, severely tormenting or burning the body is strictly forbidden in the secret mantra. Instead, the secret mantra allows for the enjoyment of the 5 senses. This also includes using samaya substances like the 5 meats and 5 nectars, and even engaging in conduct like accepting a consort. All of this is permitted precisely because everything is primordially pure. On the level of the absolute essence, whether it's male or female, pure or impure, whether it's any type of meat or waste, in their absolute nature, the very concept of impurity simply does not exist. The pure substances like the 3 sweets and 3 whites, or the impure 5 meats, one cannot distinguish between them in emptiness. They are all emptiness. People think some things are clean and others are dirty, but in their true nature, they are all pure. There is nothing impure to be found. Because of this, the use of samaya substances in the secret mantra is logical and accords with the meaning of evenness and purity. Otherwise, as the lower vehicle state, it would match reality to reject them. If this weren't the case, we should follow the lower vehicles. Reject what is impure and let go of what needs to be abandoned. If that were true, then abandoning them shouldn't be a root downfall. Then the approach of the lower vehicles would have been enough. If the nature weren't pure, then just as the Hinayana says, we would just accept this tainted body as something to be tormented and subjected to hardships. Then the Hinayana rules forbidding all forms of desire for the opposite sex would be perfectly logical, and rejecting such things should not be considered a root downfall in the secret mantra. Thus, it is not the case that mantra samaya cannot be transgressed. If we followed that logic, it would lead to the flaw that these tantric samayas are not truly inviolable. But due to the nature of purity and evenness, conduct established through the view and its strength must never be violated. Therefore, samayas are difficult to transgress. Why is it that these tantric samayas cannot be violated? There is a profound reason for this. It is because the tantric view perfectly aligns with the primordial reality of all things. For a practitioner, any thought or action that contradicts this reality is not allowed. If you violate it, you break the root samaya of the secret mantra. When we studied ascertainment of the 3 types of vows, we looked at this. Why certain actions are restricted in the Sutrayana but permitted in the secret mantra under specific circumstances. Of course, this does not mean that everyone who has received empowerment and entered the secret mantra can simply abandon the boundaries of what to adopt or reject. That is not it. It depends on one's own level of progress. If you truly have a profound and high level of realization, then for those few individuals, certain things are permitted. But these exceptions are only granted if the person remains completely free of any mental taint, with no selfishness, no self-characterized afflictions, and no self-attachment. In such a state, certain actions are permissible. In fact, in the secret mantra, it's sometimes not just permitted, but required. There are such occasions as these actions perfectly align with the ultimate truth of reality. I think some of you might have had doubts about the secret mantra before. On one hand, you hear how supreme it is and you feel inspired. But on the other hand, if your previous habits from studying the Sutrayana are strong, you might find yourself unable to trust this and unable to believe in that. You might wonder, what's secret mantra all about? Is it really true? Some people today even claim it's just Shaktism, or that it's just influenced by Brahmanism and the Vedas. Many who don't understand the underlying principles use these misleading arguments to slander the secret mantra. But for someone who truly understands when to adopt or reject certain behaviors in different contexts, it is clearly worlds apart from any other religion. So, if we harbor many doubts regarding the tantric samayas, these few short lines are enough to clear them all away. Because this principle truly exists in the essence of all things, it is natural for the secret mantra to have conduct that differs from the Sutrayana. Even the Sutrayana has to admit this in the end. When we teach the Avatamsaka, Lankavatara, or Shurangama Sutras, we find that without this tantric view of primordial purity, many principles would be impossible to explain. It becomes very simple when explained through the secret mantra. Take the Platform Sutra, for example. Ordinary beings are Buddhas, afflictions are Bodhi. Without the tantric perspective, it is unlikely that anyone could explain these words perfectly. Who would accept that an ordinary person is a Buddha and afflictions are Bodhi? If an ordinary person is a Buddha, then I have become a Buddha. Does that mean there's no difference between me and Buddha Shakyamuni? Who would agree to that? So we should reflect on these points over and over again. Otherwise, many people today simply do not take the time to think deeply. They just repeat what others say without taking the time to observe for themselves. Then they just follow along and slander the teachings. It is truly pitiable. When one lacks a stable view of their own, I believe the section on the view in the Guhya Garbha Tantra is absolutely crucial for anyone who truly wishes to practice the secret mantra. As we just discussed, tantric samayas can only be established because of primordial purity. Once, during a previous teaching on this treatise, I gave out a test question. Among the 11 topics of the Tantra, why is the tantric view so essential to every single one of them? I had everyone analyze it for themselves. Now let's look at tantric accomplishment. As for accomplishment, the aggregates, elements, and sense sources are indivisibly accomplished as the deity. If this is the manner of their abiding, it makes sense to conclude that this will be actualized by practicing the path. We say the 5 aggregates are the 5 Buddhas, and the elements and sense sources are the male and female bodhisattvas. There are such visualization methods. Especially in the secret mantra, we often visualize ourselves as Manjushri, Vajrasattva, Hayagriva, and so on. Many people visualize themselves as the deity, such as Guru Rinpoche. These types of practices are very common. If this is the reality, then this visualization is reasonable. But if my nature were fundamentally different from that of Manjushri, if I completely lacked his pure essence, then practicing the path would be as futile as trying to wash charcoal until it is white, or attempting to meditate on the mind as matter. No amount of training could ever change it into an enlightened one. Think about it. The mind is a conscious living entity. No matter how you try, you cannot visualize it as something inanimate, like a lifeless stone. Take a piece of black charcoal. How could you ever visualize it as being white? Even if you close your eyes and focus intensely on that thought, it will never turn white. It is impossible. Similarly, if I am fundamentally an ordinary person burdened with heavy karma, and I try to desperately visualize myself as Vajrasattva right now, who has absolutely no afflictions, if I just force myself to believe I'm him, then that would be totally irrational. It would be like trying to visualize coal as white rock sugar. It could never happen. Likewise, it would be unfeasible to accomplish indivisibility with the deity, so practice would be squandered. On the other hand, due to the nature of purity and evenness, practice can never be wasted in such ways. This is a very important point. In any visualization, our mind is already indivisibly one with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The essence of anything pure we visualize is fundamentally indivisible from us. This is its true inherent nature. Because this nature exists, even though we have lost our way, we can use visualization as a form of practice to reconnect. For example, in Guru Yoga, we visualize the Guru's wisdom and our own mind as being inseparable. Since the Guru's mind and our own mind have always been one and the same, this visualization allows us to receive blessings and attain realization. If they weren't fundamentally the same, if the Guru's wisdom were high above while my own mind was something inferior, then trying to force these two different things together would be completely irrational. That would make no sense at all. So many tantric practices work because even an ordinary mind is of one taste and one essence with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the Dharma Dhatu. We are simply confused at the moment. By repeatedly recognizing this mind and familiarizing ourselves with this union with the Dharma Dhatu, the seemingly impure mind gradually returns to its pure state. This is not about turning something into what it isn't. It's about realizing what has always been there. This is the most fundamental point of the secret mantra. Now let's talk about offerings. With reference to offering, in mantra the most impure substances in the world, such as the 5 meats, 5 ambrosias, and others, are arrayed as the main offerings. If they were actually impure, it would be offensive to offer them to the deities. This is not something found across all levels of the secret mantra. It specifically belongs to the highest yoga tantra, and even there, only within certain specialized practices. It's not as if these types of offerings are required for every kind of practice when you study the secret mantra. Only in the practices of specific deities, specific termas, or at particular levels of realization is there a unique requirement for such offerings, and this applies only to highly realized practitioners. Because fundamentally nothing is impure, these things can be offered. If they were truly impure, you couldn't offer them to a deity. One may think that through the blessing of mantra and mudra, the substances are purified, so it is acceptable to consider that pure substances are being blessed by mantra and mudra and then offered. What would be gained by offering impure substances? Some might argue if something were fundamentally impure, it would be pointless to try to purify it through mantras and offerings. If its nature is truly impure, no amount of blessing could ever change that. In that case, Wouldn't it be better to just take something already clean, bless it repeatedly, and offer that instead? Why insist on using impure items? It would seem completely meaningless. As with Kriya Tantra, even though it is a requirement to make pure offerings, according to Kriya Tantra and the Hinayana precepts, all offerings must be pure. This is because the views of Kriya Tantra and some Sutrayana schools haven't reached such a profound level. Generally, in the Sutrayana, when making offerings to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the items must be high quality, clean, and free of any bitter taste. That's the standard requirement for most people's offerings. It is enough to follow those rules. There is no need to use the 5 meats and 5 nectars mentioned in the highest Yoga Tantra for offerings. But in fact, we use things like the 5 nectars specifically to eliminate the discrimination between accepting pure and rejecting impure. Offerings are rendered perfectly pure based on the reason that everything is by nature pure and offerings are inherently pure. If they were impure in their true reality, we could never change that. I think I've told this story before. There was a practitioner who was quite advanced in the meditation on foulness or skeleton meditation. He was really quite skilled at it. One time, Manjushri specifically came to test him. Manjushri appeared as a beautiful woman and tried to seduce him. At first, he kept up his meditation and it didn't affect him, but later his mind began to waver. He started running away as fast as he could. The beautiful woman kept chasing him. Eventually, the man who practiced the skeleton meditation was completely exhausted. He sat down and just closed his eyes. He thought, "I'm doomed," and didn't dare to open his eyes. He stayed like that for a long time. When he finally opened his eyes, he saw that the beautiful woman had vanished. In her place, a golden, radiant Manjushri appeared. Manjushri then began to teach him. In their true essence, both beauty and ugliness are pure. You were struggling because of your attachment. Whether you cling to beauty or ugliness, at the ultimate level, you still haven't broken through self-attachment. After hearing the teachings on emptiness, he finally recognized his true nature. So even in the Sutrayana, when you reach the realization of emptiness, the objects of desire can be seen as completely pure. We saw this when we studied the early chapters of the Platform Sutra. When talking about Mahaprajna Paramita, it explains that at the ultimate level of the view, all dualistic accepting and rejecting between good and evil is as baseless as empty space. But the Sutrayana only mentions this briefly. The secret mantra, however, gives us direct instructions on non-dual purity and evenness. From this perspective, all things, whether pure or impure, are fundamentally equal. There is no difference. People think this is filthy or this is very clean. Choosing one and rejecting the other is just our own conceptual thinking. On the levels of emptiness and the primordial purity of appearances, everything is perfectly equal. Therefore, using offerings like the 5 nectars to worship the deity brings no fault. In fact, it's more than just no fault. There is great merit in using them to destroy our dualistic clinging to labels like pure and impure. This is why the tantric view is so important. Now let's talk about the enlightened activity in the inner tantras. In Mahayoga and Anu Yoga, all practices of enlightened activity email the visualization of oneself as primordially indivisible with the enlightened body, speech, and mind of the Tathagatas. In many practices of highest Yoga Tantra, you might visualize yourself as Vajrakilaya or another deity. You are inseparable from the Buddha's body, speech, and mind. For example, if I visualize myself as Ratnasambhava, I imagine yellow light radiating from my heart to bring wealth and prosperity to others. Or I visualize myself as Avalokiteshvara, radiating white light to heal the sickness of all sentient beings. If I visualize myself as Vajrayogini or Kurukula in red light streams out from my body, speech, and mind, turning the whole world into red light. Everything merges into one and dissolves back into me. Or I visualize myself as a wrathful deity, radiating black light or flames, destroying all obstacles and negative forces that need to be cleared. The secret mantra has many such methods for the 4 activities: pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and subjugating. They involve different colors, forms, and deities. Such enlightened activity is congruent with the deeds of the Tathagatas, so it is exceedingly effective. Because you visualize yourself as inseparable from the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, this practice carries immense strength. No matter which activity you are performing, if you follow the deity's practice, it is incredibly powerful. Were it not for one's primordial nature as the deity, the practice would be a mental fabrication contradicting reality and could not be proved as sublime. If you were fundamentally worlds apart from the Buddha, then visualizing yourself as Avalokiteshvara, Hayagriva, or Kurukula would be like a beggar imagining he is a king. It would be totally irrational. But in reality, whether in the Buddha's nature, the visualization stages, the samaya substances, or the rituals, all these conditions align. When all these conditions align in your practice, there truly is no difference between yourself and the deity. This is actually very important. In every secret mantra ritual, we visualize ourselves transforming into the deity in an instant. If you have a truly positive understanding of the secret mantra, not only will you avoid wrong views, but your practice will be very effective. But if you lack this visualization ability and have doubts, it won't work well. For example, in Guru Yoga, if you think, how can I visualize myself as the guru? That's terrifying. I can't do that. If you practice with such a narrow and limited mindset, your results won't be very significant. That's what's being said here. If our nature weren't already that of the deity, then visualization that does not correspond to the facts would just be a distorted way of thinking. It wouldn't have any supreme quality. It wouldn't represent the supreme view of the secret mantra at all. Ultimately, self-nature and the deity are undifferentiated due to the intrinsic nature of purity and evenness. The practice of inner mantra is declared to be more sublime than the practice of Kriya Tantra. This is why one gains mastery over enlightened activities. Why are many enlightened activities in the inner Tantra spontaneously accomplished? Why is it that among the lineage disciples of Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, so many of them, whether in their practice or meditative concentration, clearly possess qualities that are superior to most people? This is closely related to their tantric view and personal practice. That's the reason why enlightened activities become spontaneously accomplished. Well, as I've mentioned before, the environment and terrain of His Holiness's monastery is a place where magnetizing activities are very easily accomplished. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche used to say the same during previous Vidyadhara assemblies. So for this year's Vidyadhara assembly, if you are able to attend and participate, you should follow the sadhana and visualize accordingly. By doing so, your activities to spread the Dharma and benefit beings will be vast. His Holiness later decided that every Vidyadhara assembly should last for 15 days, because such practice requires an immense amount of power. Now, many of you are reciting the Great Cloud of Blessings every day. This is a prayer to the 9 deities of magnetization, and it is vital if you understand the auspicious conditions of Larungar and the primordial purity of all things and realize you are inseparable from the 9 deities, then whether it is magnetizing, pacifying, or any other tantric activity, it won't be difficult at all. I just wanted to remind everyone of that. Now let's move to the last of the 11 topics, mantra and mudra. They are more effective than the binding and recitation in outer mantra. Mifam Rinpoche will explain these in detail later on. For now, we are just summarizing them in the context of the view. While we think of mudras as being formed with the hands, the true mudra goes beyond that. Compared to the outer tantras, the mantras and mudras of the unsurpassed mantra are far more powerful, possessing immense merit and blessings. Why is that? It's because the force of practicing through familiarity and realization of their indivisibility with the deity. In this state, every mudra you form carries great power. If you truly don't know how to form the specific mudras of a deity, Mifam Rinpoche says that the Vajra fist, or even simply joining your palms, can represent all mudras. The mantras you recite are essentially one with the deity. For instance, Manjushri's heart mantra is inseparable from Manjushri himself. When you master such pith instructions and possess this practice and view, the merit becomes even more extraordinary. If this were not the way of abiding, meaning if the mantra and mudra didn't align with the realization of being inseparable from the deity, then they would just be the same as reciting any ordinary dharani. If that were the case, Tantra wouldn't be extraordinary. Generic dharanas, like the Shurangama mantra or the rebirth mantra, certainly have merit. However, they differ from the unsurpassed mantra, where all mantras and mudras are seen as inseparable from the deity. If you have not realized the state where the mantra, mudra, and deity are one, then these mantras become like ordinary recitations of Buddha names or any dharani in the Sutrayana. There would not be much difference. And you would not achieve the great blessings of mantra and mudra found in the inner tantras. You wouldn't experience that specific intense blessing of the inner tantras. On the other hand, mantra and mudra used in conjunction with the generation and completion stages of unsurpassed mantra possess the exceptional power of blessing. The rituals and practices related to the unsurpassed mantra are indeed incredibly blessed. If you have faith in the secret mantra, keep this in mind when choosing a sadhana. Take the Vajrasattva practice, for example. His Holiness has a single deity sadhana For those who are not very familiar with Tantra, this solitary practice is very good. At our Academy's annual assembly, we use Maipam Rinpoche's Vajrasattva Sadhana, which involves the union form. Comparing the two in terms of the blessing from the direct lineage, the one written by His Holiness himself also has incomparable blessings. But in terms of the level of the ritual, Mifam Rinpoche's version belongs to unsurpassed yoga for someone who truly understands the tantric view. Practicing with an unsurpassed yoga sadhana has its own unique advantages. So the unsurpassed mantra has many superior qualities. This even applies to the tankas or statues you display. If you possess a high level of realization in view, a refuge tree with Guru Rinpoche in union is considered a ritual of the unsurpassed mantra. In the Longchen Yingtik, the refuge tree featuring Guru Rinpoche in union also belongs to the practices of the unsurpassed mantra. However, since many people have not yet reached that level of realization, using a single deity form of Guru Rinpoche as one's refuge object is also perfectly fine. So there is a real difference between the unsurpassed mantra and the mantras or mudras found in the outer tantras or sutrayana. People who don't know much about secret mantra might think, oh, sutrayana and secret mantra are pretty much the same. There's no big difference. In some general ways, one could understand it that way. But when it comes to specific pith instructions and profound principles, you can't generalize in that way. These are established through unmistakably engaging with the meaning of great purity and evenness. What is the reason? Because the tantric view is that of primordial purity and evenness. If you enter into such a state without error, then its mudras and mantras will indeed carry immense merit and blessings. This is an established fact. Therefore, the subject established through the view is based on the correct meaning of great purity and evenness. The tantric view determines that all phenomena are fundamentally pure and even. Because of this, all meditations within mantra are proved to be the unmistaken swift path. Because the tantric view directly determines that all phenomena are primordially pure and even, its meditation and samadhi practices are performed in complete accordance with the true nature. Why is it often said that the secret mantra is such a swift path? This is the reason. It doesn't take a roundabout way, it goes straight to the view. Once the view is established, you practice it directly. So it's not that Tantra ignores the rules of cause and effect. Why does the Sutrayana require such a long time, while the secret mantra can achieve results in such a short period? Actually, Zen also looks directly for the true nature. But when it comes to this direct approach, people's capacities vary greatly. If someone has a high capacity, then whether it's sudden enlightenment in Sutrayana or this tantric view, they are a perfect fit. But for those with many wrong conceptual thoughts, limited wisdom, and heavy negative karma from past lives, they struggle to develop a correct view. Instead, they are quick to form wrong views and negative intentions over the slightest thing. For such individuals, the sudden path of Zen or the secret mantra might not be suitable. So there is nothing wrong with the teachings themselves, but the individuals practicing them differ. Precisely because the view determines the meaning of great purity, tantric meditation is perfectly in line with the unmistaken nature of reality. Thus, it is an easy and swift path. Through the view of realizing the meaning of great purity and evenness, one will gain the total confidence of discovering supreme certainty with all paths of mantra. With the premise of the tantric view of primordial purity and equality, one can develop a positive and firm conviction in all aspects of the tantric practices, paths, and empowerments. We've given only 8 lessons this year, but I feel that through these lessons, many have gained unprecedented new insights into the secret mantra. In the past, many of our Dharma friends might have had a good feeling about Tantra or found it interesting, but they may not have been able to explain the underlying logic of why it is superior to many other practices. If a person with keen insight thoroughly masters the study and contemplation we've covered, then no matter the setting, they will be able to speak appropriately to defend the secret mantra. At the same time, they'll realize, okay, so that's why there are things in Tantra that seem hard to understand or unexpected. It's because the key point is the view that everything is fundamentally pure and even. Tantra recognizes this directly. When you truly recognize this truth, then whatever you do, your actions will not defile you. Moreover, your behavior will be in accord with the truth. Why is it that some people find certain behaviors in Zen or the secret mantra hard to accept? Because the tantric conduct and practice follow the view that they will inevitably seem unsuitable or even offensive to ordinary people. In those cases, it might offend some people. If someone is a truly great realized master, that's just how it is. But if someone isn't a truly master and just acts that way on purpose or pretends to be one, the faults they incur are infinite. That's why Mifam Rinpoche and Longchenpa have repeatedly emphasized, and this is also taught in the Hinayana, that we must not have spiritual arrogance. You might believe that you have realized primordial purity and equality, but if you lack any actual realization when it matters most and only have a literal understanding, then it is completely wrong. Generally speaking, understanding this view is absolutely vital. If you have this foundation, then practices like Togol or the visualization of Bindus will become very appropriate. Practicing with the inner winds, channels, and essences will also make sense. Visualizing the deity becomes perfectly logical as well. Whether you are chanting mantras, practicing Zen, or going into retreat, as long as you hold this view of primordial purity and try your best to rest in it, you will not encounter any obstacles. Otherwise, you might go astray or even lose your mind while practicing the tantric path. There are some highly improper cases. Some people just keep holding their breath without any tantric view at all. They just obsessively focus on vase breathing. In the end, they come out of retreat completely confused and unstable. But if you are truly guided by the correct tantric view, then you won't face any demonic interferences or obstacles. This is the most important point in practice. That's why you must have firm conviction. All paths sustained by this view are the perfectly pure path of mantra. But without such a view, it's just like what Mifam Rinpoche mentioned earlier. No matter how good you look on the outside, acting like a yogi with long hair, a hand drum, and a bell, it is of no use. I see many people like this in Hong Kong, but it is hard to say whether they actually possess true tantric yogic conduct. Some wear huge earrings and all sorts of things. Some wear blue lotus hats and white robes. They have all sorts of appearances. But it's hard to say whether that's truly Tantra. If you've truly realized that all appearances are only mind, or you hold the highest view, you might indeed display extraordinary conduct. Even so, we shouldn't slander them or develop wrong views. Regardless of others, you must manage your own practice. Don't lie to yourself. Nowadays, some people have no realization at all, but they act like enlightened masters in front of others. They claim to be this or that, but they don't even respect the basic rules of cause and effect. That's totally improper. The point here is that if you are truly guided by the tantric view, then all your practice, meditation, empowerments, and mantra recitation become authentic and proper. Furthermore, such a person will never disregard cause and effect. Just look at His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche and the great masters of the past. They completely mastered the highest views of secret mantra, yet their conduct and practice remained very humble and in accord with ordinary people. This prevents people from criticizing or getting a bad impression of the Dharma. Therefore, practitioners of the secret mantra should follow the teachings of Guru Rinpoche and the past masters. Even if your realization has ascended, you should conform to others for the sake of the Dharma's image. Since most people are non-Buddhists or have Sutrayana and Hinayana capacities, your unconventional behavior might otherwise be unacceptable to them. We should act in a way that people can understand. Let's look at a simple example. In Chinese Han Buddhism, not eating meat has been a very good tradition for a long time. If all Buddhists can maintain that kind of conduct, then people will naturally respect the Dharma, and they will respect Tibetan Buddhism as well. But if you come back from Tibetan region and immediately start dressing strangely with manners of eating, walking, and speaking that are off-putting to most people, it may be that your view has truly transcended dualistic choice, but it is still hard for others to accept. Therefore, try to keep your inner view aligned with secret mantra while keeping your conduct in line with the Bodhisattva vows and the Vinaya. Outwardly, we should act this way for the sake of conforming to sentient beings. If you truly have no need for dualistic choice, you may go and practice disciplined conduct in the 8 great charnel grounds. Yet, I have seen people go there at dusk and become too terrified to come out at night. That shows that they haven't truly realized the equality of purity and emptiness. Until you do, be very careful with cause and effect. This completes a brief explanation of the first topic, Secret Mantra's ultimate training in the Prajnaparamita of the view. All right, we have successfully finished the section on the Tantric view for this year. Tirgana jirano chupan, chupun solen droa
Bandangara Badna Sodargye Bandangara Badna Sodargye Bandangara Badna Sodargye